In this tutorial, we're going to have a look at how to create a third-person controller like you see in most games nowadays. Alrighty you guys, we're going to start off by heading over to Mixamo.com. It's an awesome site that gives you access to so many characters as well as animations. I'm going to download this guy. Just make sure that you're downloading the T-pose, and then I'm going to head over to animations and download a jogging animation as well as walking and an idle animation. After that, I'm just going to import them into my project and put them in a folder called character. After that, just select your T-pose and click on the extract textures and extract materials button on the inspector. This will extract all the materials and models of this character and then apply it such that it actually looks good in your project. This is something that's specific to Mixamo characters, so you don't really have to do them for other characters most of the time. Once that is done, just drag in your character to your scene and place them in the position that you want the game to start from. Then select your camera and position it in the shoulder level of the character and just drag it in like that, and just do your adjustments the way that you want it to appear. Now to animate our character, we need an animation controller. So I'm going to right click my character folder and create an animator. Also, I'm going to rename my character to something that makes sense, like player. I'm going to select it and I'm going to drag in my newly created character controller to that controller slot on the inspector. There you go. Once that is done, just double click your newly created controller and click on each of your animations and rename it on the inspector. Now this will allow you to differentiate between each of those different animations we have, because all of your Mixamo characters animations are gonna have the same name, which is kind of confusing. So I'm gonna change them to idle, run, and walk. Once that is done, we need two Boolean parameters. So in the parameters tab, just create a new Boolean called isWalking, and then we'll create another one called isRunning. Once that is done, click on each of your animations and make sure that loop time is checked. This will make sure that your animation will continue to run. And then I'm going to drag in both of my animations, the idle, walk, and run. And then I'm going to make a transition from idle to walk to idle, and walk to run to walk, and run to idle and idle to run. This will allow us to switch between any of these animations easily. Next up, we're going to select each of those transitions and we're going to check has exit time off. This will allow us to easily switch to any of those animations without having to wait until the animation completes. Then select the idle to walk animation. We'll create a new condition called is walking true, which means it'll go from idle to walk if is walking is true and is running is false. And similarly, we're going to click on walk to idle and we're going to create a condition called is walking false and is running is also false, which means it'll switch to idle if both of them are false. They're in one place. We're going to select walk to run and we're going to create two conditions such that it will go into run if walking is false and running is true. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing for running to walking. So we're going to select that transition and we're going to create a condition such that it'll go into that if walking is true and running is false. And similarly, we're going to click the transition from running to idle and we're going to set the conditions is walking is false and is running is also false. And similarly, we are going to click the transition from idle to run and add two conditions such that it'll go into run mode if is walking is set to false and is running is set to true. Now we can easily switch between any of these animations at any given time based on the user's input. Time to code. Let's right click our scripts folder and create a new C# script called character movement. This script is responsible for moving the character forward, backward, and any of the directions that you want it to move. Alright, let's have a look at the code now. The first parameter, the animator, is what we just created, and there's also a walk speed. Then we get a reference to the animator, This grabs the input from the horizontal vertical axis. We store them in a vector 3 and then multiply it by the walk speed and the time.delta time to make sure that it runs the same way in different machines. Then we translate the entire character forward and backward. This will also check if there's any vertical movement. If there's no vertical movements, it will go into this else condition and set is walking and is running as false. If not, it'll move into this condition over here. And then if you press the left shift key, the character is going to start running because is running is set to true and is walking set to false. But if you're not pressing the left shift key, the character will start playing the walking animation and stop playing the running animation if it is playing. And there you have it, that's the movement script. Let's just bring it into our character and also drag in our animator into that slot and change the walking speed to something like 3. Next, we're going to create a script for the camera so that the camera follows our character wherever he goes. Let's call it character camera, and then we'll open up that script. This float value is responsible for the speed of the camera movement, and then we need a transform to the target, which is the camera itself. And then we are going to target, and then we have a player transform which references to the player itself. And then we have the mouse X and Y to store the input values from the mouse. Then we're also going to hide our cursor in the start function. Then we're going to write a control camera function, but we're going to call it within fixed update. This will ensure that this function is called before the physics calculations are done within Unity. And then moving on to the control camera, we're going to store the mouse X and Y input multiplied by the look sensitivity and store them in the mouse X and Y parameters we created before. Then we are going to clamp the mouse Y such that there's a limitation between -35 and 60, so it doesn't go beyond that. You can change this value to anything you like. We're also going to set a look at such that the camera will always turn towards our target. After that, all we need to do is just rotate the player to the direction that the camera is facing, as well as rotate the entire camera to the direction that you want. And there you have it, that's our script for the camera. Also, this script is available for downloading in the description below. All we had to do is now parent the camera within the player such that the camera always moves along with the player. Now we're going to attach the script that we just created, so select your camera and attach the character camera script. We're going to drag in our target as the camera itself, so drag in your main camera to that slot, and we're going to drag in our player into the player slot. There you have it. Now if you just run the game, you'll see that it's actually running the way it should and it looks quite good. And there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Coming up with a new tutorial, so make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys soon.